Do you guys remember the movie Frenemies? I sure hope not. When I was scrolling through my list of Disney Channel original movies that I haven't covered yet on my channel, I was a bit intrigued by it because although it premiered towards the end of my Disney Channel watching tenure, I do definitely remember it coming out, or at the very least, I remember it being advertised, but I never actually watched it, so I thought, hey, this might be a fun little video to do, something light, plus it's been a while since I released a Disney Channel original movie video. I believe the last one I did was, Jump In? And y'all ain't really turned up for that one. But before that, I did Minutemen, and well, let's just see what this video brings, yeah? Join me, for my name is Mr. Nostalgia, and today we will be talking about the smash hit Disney Channel original movie, Frenemies.
Friends.
Sorry.
Enemies.
We're best friends, and we're enemies.
Frenemies.
What happens when one becomes the other?
I can't believe we were ever BFFs. Best friends for never.
Coming soon. 3 stories that go from friendship to...
Stay out of my way, doggo.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Bella Thorne, Zendaya, Stefanie Scott in the Disney Channel original movie, Frenemies. Coming soon to Disney Channel.
Frenemies premiered on the Disney Channel on January 13th, 2012. The film does a bit of a unique twist on the standard DCOM format. Instead of having one main story, the movie is split up between 3 acts, each following a completely different set of friends. You guys remember the movie Shorts, directed by Robert Rodriguez? Well, it really reminds me of that, but with far less personality and creativity. The film stars Mary Mouser, Nick Robinson, Stefanie Scott, and Winston Dog. But of course, most of the marketing around this movie was surrounded by the film's 2 main stars, Bella Thorne and Zendaya, who you might know from the Disney Channel series Shake It Up. Hey man, even though the quality of the projects that these 2 were in could definitely be questioned, it's hard to deny that they're one of Disney Channel's most accomplished duos. I mean, they used to put up Shaq and Kobe numbers back in like 2011. To 2013. Don't act like y'all weren't bumping TTYLX / something to dance for. Come on now. They were doing all kinds of stuff. They was doing the Make Your Mark dancing contests, whatever that was. They had those 2 appear in French for Change promos. Watch my video on that. They even reunited these 2 in an episode of Casey Undercover once. Anywho, like I said, the movie is focused on 3 different stories that are going on more or less at the same time, focusing on a pair of friends that ended up as enemies. Act 1 follows the adventures of Jake Logan and Murray T. Dog. These 2 are the bestest of friends and do everything together. Murray helps them get dressed in the morning, they eat breakfast at the same time, and even partake in synchronized belching. In the opening scene, we're also greeted to Jake's mom, and never are we introduced to his fathers, so that makes me think that his parents are divorced or his dad died or something, because it's not a Disney Channel original movie without a single parent. It's revealed that Jake is awaiting some sort of award from NASA thanks to some smart stuff that he did, which means that our lead character here is a genius, a science buff, if you will. And as for Murray, well, he's pretty smart as well, smarter than the average dog, I would say. He knows his commands very well and sometimes doesn't even need to be commanded something in order to do it. These 2 are totally inseparable, to the point where Murray almost follows Jake to school, but Jake has to remind him that dogs aren't allowed and he needs to go home, so he does. Meanwhile at school, Jake's teacher informs the class that a science project is coming up soon, so they're going to need to partner up. A kid named Owen asks Jake if he can be partners with them, but Jake quickly denies him, since last time they partnered up, he did all of the work while Owen did nothing. Despite Jake's firm stand on never wanting to be in a situation like that again, a girl named Julianne, who is basically just Stefanie Scott's character from Ant Farm, successfully swindles Jake into partnering up with her, saying that she would never do that to him, since people do that to her all the time. So later that day, Jake takes Julianne to his house to work on the project. She gets a call from one of her friends asking where she went after school, to which she confirmed we were all able to gather from earlier. She's only pretending to be friends with Jake so she can get a good grade in her science class. But as soon as she hangs up the phone, the camera pans to Murray staring at her and growling. I guess he heard the conversation and now has beef with her. Personally think that's a little too much. Like, I was never a fan of dogs just like straight up understanding humans in live action films like this. I think such a trope works better in animated movies, that way it's easier to suspend disbelief, but I don't know. I don't want to be too critical of this film yet. We're only 6.5 minutes in. Julianne heads back to Jake's room to work on the project, only for Murray to end up taking her seat. This leads to Julianne pushing him off so she can sit down, which then leads to Murray getting kicked out of the room altogether. And considering what you know about this movie's plot, yeah, you can put together what's happening here. Murray is starting to become jealous of the time that Jake is spending with Julianne, since usually he's the one that's in Jake's room while he works on projects. Jake's mom comes up the stairs to hand him the certificate that he had been expecting from NASA, and then...
What I missed?
Nah, her face killed me, bruh. Julianne introduces herself to Jake's mom and compliments her on her top.
I love that shade of pink. Matches my lip gloss. Don't you think so, Jakey?
Jakey?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Jakey? Already? I mean, I know she's faking it, but man. Later, the two take Murray to the dog park, and Jake tries his best to make Julianne befriend him. But after he drops the slobbery ball all over her, Julianne angrily chucks the ball across the park. She's got an insane arm, bruh. Golly. She then tells Jake that it might be better if he finished the project without her. At first, Jake is upset that she's making him do all the work, but when she explains that she just can't think straight while she's around him, and because of that wouldn't be useful to the little team that they have, this idiot actually believes her. She then asks if he has a girlfriend, and when he says no, she immediately volunteers to be his. And they are officially a couple now. But not really, of course. Meanwhile, while trying to get his ball back, Murray encounters a girl named Savannah who immediately greets him. She then helps Murray track down Jake, all while allowing him to use his skateboard. You know what? This is too easy. I feel like I can make a better Zeke and Luther reference in this video somehow. Although I will say, Murray really is the coolest dog in the world though. I mean, look at him.
You seriously have the coolest dog in the world.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. Savannah introduces herself and Jake does the same. However, before the conversation gets too deep, Julianne immediately jams herself in the conversation and says that they're dating. So she should scram. So she does. The next morning, Jake gets up and puts on some clothes that he believes to be cool in order to impress Juliet. She's about to head out, but then notices Murray pick up a love letter that Julianne wrote to him. Murray then rushes to the toilet and drops it in. Whoa, I don't even like this girl and I think that's disrespectful. Jake then channels his inner Eustace and calls him a dumb dog. Later at school, while Jake is talking to his two friends, we're introduced to Bella and Zendaya's characters. Bella is playing a girl named Avalon, apparently. What, like Avalon High? Y'all remember that? And Zendaya is playing a girl named Holly. And I'm gonna just be blunt. I hate both of these characters, but we won't get into why until later. I will, however, talk about how I was surprised that these two were shoehorned into this plot, considering they will later have a story of their own. But then I remembered that since Bella and Zendaya were heavily advertised in this movie, and at the time were one of Disney Channel's biggest stars, it does make sense that the writers shoved them into every storyline. I mean, even I was starting to wonder when these two would show up. They immediately give Jake fashion advice, since apparently that's what they're into, take a picture of him to put it in their blog, and scurry off. And trust me, I do not miss them. Jake, along with Julianne, head back to Jake's place to continue to work on their project, which is weird because I'm pretty sure Julianne said that she wanted Jake to do all the work and she'd stay back, but whatever. To Jake's surprise though, he finds that his room was torn up and ran through by his own dog. What makes things even more challenging is that Julianne finds the love letter that she wrote to Jake all wet and ruined. Jake says it's only because he wants some attention, but she responds by saying that the only way to solve this problem is for him to get rid of the dog permanently. And to make matters even worse, Julianne sits in a puddle of wet paint, which was no doubt put there by Murray.
You better send him to the pound before I pound him.
Alright, bro. Julianne, before leaving Jake's room, takes his NASA certificate and mumbles something about getting rid of Jake's dog for him. The next day, we see her out for a jog, which I guess confirms that they live pretty close to each other, and she sprays some of her perfume on the certificate and slips it through the mail slot on the door. This doesn't really work for me personally though, because like that is one of Jake's most prized possessions, and you're telling me that he didn't notice it was somehow missing from his room? This kid is a geek. He probably prays to that thing every night. Come on now. Anyway, Murray brings it to the toilet and flushes it down. Like he literally flushed the toilet.
This is the worst thing you've ever done. You're the worst dog. I hate you. Get out of here.
That's what Warriors fans said to Klay Thompson after going 0 for 10 from the field in that play-in game.
Get out!
Whoa! How'd he do that? What is it, Kangor from Static Shock? Anyway, the dog just keeps running and running, and you know, you actually do feel kind of bad for him until you remember this movie is mad stupid. Murray eventually finds Skater Girl, and she just like takes him home, which I always felt was kind of weird. Like, shouldn't you ask your parents first? We then cut to a scene of Jake at his house drying off the letter Murray nearly sent to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then we get this really dumb line that still ticks me off. This is a teenager saying this, mind you.
Mom, we were best friends. Now we're enemies.
Like, be for real. He's a dog. A dog is your enemy? Got Dr. Doofenshmirtz over here beefing with animals. Even for a Disney Channel original movie, I can't take this seriously. Am I really supposed to care that this 15-year-old isn't friends with his dog anymore? And I know it's for kids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. See, like, this would have hit hard if this was an episode of Rugrats and Tommy was going through this with Spike. That's cinema. Jake's mom, whose name is Lisa, by the way, I just never got around to saying it, asks where Julianne is, and that's when Jake reveals that he's doing the project on his own. Later, Skater Girl starts talking to Murray and reveals that she has a crush on Jake. She then proceeds to have an entire conversation with him, but when she takes out her phone to try to figure out how to get him home, Murray grabs the phone with his mouth and puts it in the trash, insinuating that he doesn't actually want to go home and instead wants to stay with Skater Girl. So that's what ends up happening. The next day at school, we get a montage of Julianne doing the same thing she's doing to Jake, but with a couple different guys, and Skater Girl being present for each case. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Shawty is an eeny, meeny, miny, mo lover. Meanwhile, at Skater Girl's house, Murray is reminiscing on the good old days with his pal Jake. So, motivated by the love for his owner and former best friend, he makes a run for it. Back at school, Jake's two friends find a note on Jake's locker from Savannah saying that she found Murray. So, they confront Jake about it, and that's when Jake explains everything that happened. Owen says that Murray would never throw away something that he knew was important. He's a dog, by the way, guys. That's when Jake remembered that the NASA certificate smelled like Julianne's perfume, and realized that she must have sprayed perfume on it to make Murray want to throw it out.
Man, the next time I see your face, you better watch out.
Hey, Jakey.
Hey, Julianne.
Julianne denies the allegations at first, but Jake remembers that he's a genius for once and doesn't fall for her shenanigans. He finally grasps that she was just using him. But Murray, being the smart dog that he is, picked up on it from the beginning. Jake walks away into the classroom, and Julianne, who is much more concerned about the science project and breaking Jake's heart, follows him in. Just then, Savannah comes in with Julianne's other two boyfriends and exposes her and her motives. Jake finally puts an end to their fake relationship, but Julianne demands that he gives her the project they worked on. Savannah pleads that she doesn't deserve it, but good guy Jake, for whatever reason, gives it to her anyway. Just then, Murray comes in and saves the day and pushes her down. Yeah, that's right, Murray. Own that fraud. Then this dude pees on it, bro. That's what I'm talking about, Murray. How did you get into the school, my guy? All right, anyway, Murray barks a bunch of times, and this scares the girls away for some reason. Jake apologizes to Murray and promises that no girl will ever come in between them again, which makes Skater Girl a little sad. She says her goodbyes to Murray and Jake as we close out their story and transition into the next one. So since this movie is split up into 3 different storylines, I figured I'd review each story after I'm done recapping it instead of just doing it all at the end of the video. Yeah, this is bad. I mean, just to start off at the top, the story itself is just so... I don't want to use the word unrealistic because it is fiction at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just really dumb. I don't know how to explain it. And then outside of that, this movie, or at least this part of it, is just so unseasoned. The characters are nothing. The humor is practically non-existent. Like, yeah, it's for kids, but so is Hatching Pete and Minutemen. And both of those movies managed to tell, at the very least, somewhat interesting stories with decent humor. Starstruck, right? I think Starstruck is a bad movie, but the plot of it isn't my issue. The plot is actually pretty interesting. It's just executed poorly. This plot, on the other hand, is bad, and it's executed poorly, which is why it was a struggle to get through. Hopefully the next one is better, right? Right? Spoiler alert, it's not.
Don't go away. We'll be back with a Disney Channel movie. We're back with a Disney Channel movie.
Act 2 of the movie follows Bella and Zendaya's characters Avalon and Holly, who run a fashion web magazine called Geekly Chic. And I didn't even realize this until now, but I took 0 notes for this one. I watched the whole thing and just got nothing out of it. I didn't even write down any jokes to like make fun of it or anything. That's how boring this one was. Anyway, the two of them are driven to school by Hallie's older brother, who has a thing for his GPS. I'm serious.
Could you repeat that last direction for me? Slowly?
Turn right on Addison.
Yo, I just realized this dude was in Like Mike 2. The bad one. While at the library, Holly gets a call from her and Avalon's favorite publishing company, Burns Publications, which is run by Cherie St. Clair. At first, Holly believes that this is her brother playing a prank on her using the GPS's voice. However, when she realizes that this is 100% the real Cherie St. Clair, inviting them to a meeting, the girls get extremely excited. Yeah, shut up. No, I'm playing. After a dressing montage, we do actually end up in New York, where the girls somehow travel to. 2 teenage girls alone, roaming the streets of Manhattan with no parental guidance whatsoever. What is this, a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie? They arrive at Cherie's office, but first run into a woman who is just crying, implying that the St. Clair person is one tough cookie. She's actually played by that one lady that was in season 4 of Lab Rats, if anyone remembers. So that's cool. She goes on to explain that the company is looking for fresh and young voices, and Geekly Chic might just be that voice. She loves their blog and wants to turn it into a media empire, but there seemed to be a little bit of a miscommunication. See, Holly was the one that got the call because she's the editor-in-chief. So when Cherie sent the call out, she was only interested in hiring her, since she plans on hiring a bunch of underpaid editors and writers herself. But she wants to keep one of them on board so the blog still feels real. At first, they're adamant on staying together, but Cherie insists that it's either one of them or none of them. To make this fair though, she said that she'll give them both an opportunity to come up with a good cover story to launch the rebranded blog. Whoever comes up with the best story gets the job. However, both of them come up with the idea to interview an up-and-coming singer named Jean Frank, before he's too big to take interviews from anyone else. The issue is though, the concert that he's doing nearby is sold out, so now the two are on a race, so who can somehow get an interview with Jean first. Neither girl finds any luck getting away into the concert. However, when a student named Walker, who runs the school newspaper, hears about the situation, somehow, he tells Avalon that thanks to a long list of connections that probably shouldn't even be possible, he knows how to find tickets to the concert, and says he can hook Avalon up. Really, he's only being this nice to her because he has a crush on her, but Avalon takes him up on his offer, and sure enough, she's able to interview him right after his concert. So she goes up to Hallie and brags about it, which she probably shouldn't have done because Hallie ends up stealing Avalon's phone to call the last number Avalon spoke to, which would be Jean Frank's number. While posing as Avalon's assistant and using a French accent because she doesn't actually know how to speak the actual language, she successfully books an interview with Jean Frank before Avalon's interview with him. But unfortunately for her, Walker was there the whole time and saw her make the call. So because he's a simp, he tells Avalon, which leads to Avalon confronting her about it and the two girls arguing for a while. Realizing that she can't let Hallie win, Avalon goes into Hallie's brother's car, which conveniently is unlocked for the sake of plot convenience. Why, you may ask? Well, earlier it was revealed that his GPS has the ability to speak a bunch of different languages, including Urdu. So, Avalon programmed it to that language, making it impossible for them to figure out the directions. Having no other choice, they decided to use a map to get there. Somehow, Avalon was able to get to the concert on her own, way before Hallie. But because Hallie called in saying that she would be there before Avalon decided to pose as Hallie in order to make it backstage. That was a lot of name dropping. Eventually though, Hallie, the real Hallie, like Zendaya that is, and her brother make it to the concert. While Avalon is interviewing Jean Frank, Hallie comes in through the window and falls down. Jean Frank gets really confused by all of this, but to add even more confusion to the mix, this dude accidentally starts talking in a standard American accent instead of the French one he was speaking in earlier. He reveals to the girls that he is in fact a fake French guy. His name is Johnny Francucci, and because of the fact that he couldn't get anyone to listen to his music in America, he decided to move to Paris and create a French persona just so he could look cool. The girls convinced him to drop the act and be true to himself or something. I don't know, this is dumb. They apologize, somehow go back to Manhattan, and turn the story in together, presenting it as theirs. And although the lab rats lady enjoyed the story, after hearing they weren't going to budge on the stance of them staying as partners, she denies both them and their story. Yeah, get them out of here! Article is probably mid anyway. Fortunately for them though, their story doesn't end there. Matter of fact, it gets quite positive. That Walker kid from earlier that has strange connections to everyone, it seems, has managed to hook the girls up with something huge. There's a show named Teens Now that wants to pick up the article that they wrote about Jean-Frank changing his image. And the storyline ends with the TV show broadcasting their website on live TV, which leads to it blowing up. But most importantly, this little situation that these girls went through seemingly has strengthened their friendship forever. So, I don't really like this story either, but not for the same reasons I disliked the first one. The first story used a plot that was just too unrealistic to the point where I found it hard to pick anyone's side while watching it. I couldn't form an attachment to the narrative. This story, on the other hand, actually solved that problem by creating a scenario that is far more grounded, something that actually kinda could happen to a couple of teens. While this scenario is just overall less stupid than the first one, it is, however, much more boring and cliche. The two girls get into a petty squabble that feels like something taken out of an iCarly TV special. Only this time, the two leads are a lot less likable than Carly and Sam. I think both are pretty annoying, but at least they're going through a problem that I can get behind. Aside from the main plot, the script is cluttered with weird holes and things that should have been explained, but never really were. Granted, it is stuff that kids wouldn't think about, and I guess could be summed up to me being nitpicky, but like, what parents just casually let their 14-year-old daughters walk around alone in Manhattan? The answer is none. No parents do that, and the writers knew that, so they just never included parents in the movie. That way, the potential obstacle of rejection to traveling is avoided, and you can move the plot along. I don't know what the term is for such a writing trope, but I do know that I am personally just not a fan of it, even in kids' movies. However, I will give this story one thing. When Avalon and Hallie's website starts blowing up at the end, I did feel a sense, a very, very small sense of contentment, which is a feeling that I didn't feel at all during the last story. So hey, there's that. Now, I've commented how this movie operates in this weird world that has a lack of realism, even for a fictional kids movie. There are things that happen in this movie that I feel like are just too illogical even for the universe that it takes place in. Characters should be questioning certain things, but they don't. They kind of just brush it off and put logic to the side. And I know I've harped on this a bunch lately, but there isn't a single better example of this than this weird, senseless, and hold on, let me take out my thesaurus. Irrational story that they chose for this third and final act of the movie. I don't know what they were thinking with this, but this is genuinely one of the sloppiest third acts I have ever seen from a movie. So this one surprisingly goes back to some of the characters we met in Act 1, specifically Skater Girl. It's revealed that she lives in an all-male household with a dad and 3 younger brothers, which would explain her tomboyish demeanor. Despite this though, when she spots Jake on her way to school, she gets all nervous inside and wipes out. Murray, who seemingly repaired his relationship with Jake, goes to check on her. She assures him though that she's okay and skates off to continue her voyage to school. We're then introduced to a girl in a limo, and if your initial reaction is, "Isn't that Skater Girl?" Yes it is. You see, they decided to spend the final act of the story telling the tale of 2 girls that look exactly like each other but aren't related. Literally, these are the same 2 girls, and no, they never explain why they look alike. They just let it happen. How did they manage to jump the shark so hard? Anyway, these 2 girls, despite their similar appearance, live 2 very different lives. While Savannah is a tomboy who lives with all males and attends public school, Emma is a rich girl in a rich family and goes to a rich school. Gee guys, 2 girls who look exactly alike but live 2 different lives. I wonder what common writing trope they're gonna pull from this time. Savannah arrives at school and sees Jake.
Hey, Jake. You don't have to do that for me. I'm not helpless, see?
Wow, nice guns. Bigger than mine.
I'm not gonna lie. If there is a list of things to not say while entering a school, nice guns, they're bigger than mine, is probably top 2. I'm just saying.
You had to show me your guns.
And that would be number 1. Wow. Later at the mall, Cece and Rocky spot Emma in a store. They go back and forth about if it's truly her or not. But then once they spot Savannah a second later, they start to compare the 2. At first, they're weirded out by how much they look alike, but quickly dismiss it to look at some purses. So they're both aware that these 2 exist and resemble each other perfectly, but they don't really ever question why. Okay, the two girls meet each other and aren't the least bit concerned that they're basically looking in a mirror right now.
I love a good misunderstanding, but this is just getting ridiculous.
Oh my, stop popping up everywhere. I'm getting sick of y'all. You had your moment to shine. Leave, kick rocks. So they decide that since both of them feel like their lives are lacking what the other has, they will switch places. They swap places and both struggle to adjust to each other's very different lifestyles. So during a phone call, they agree that they're going to swap their lives back. But things get complicated when Emma, posed as Havana, meets Jake. This leads to Jake finally getting the courage to ask Samantha out on a date. The two, not twin girls, squeal about it in excitement over the phone.
I get so nervous around him. I always say the wrong thing and do dumb stuff like show him my guns.
I'm actually kind of surprised Disney keeps letting this slide considering how sensitive they are. They agree to stay as each other for another day, so Emma, who has relationship experience since she's in one right now with a dude named Lance, can show Savannah how it's done. So they come up with this plan where Savannah hides in the restaurant they're having the date in so she can watch her every move. Things start going a little too well though, and Savannah starts getting jealous. So they argue about it, which leads to Savannah stealing Emma's boyfriend. The two later meet up with Emma and Jake, and eventually things lead to both couples wanting to go on a double date. That's when Savannah realizes that Emma has a birthday party coming up, so since she's cosplaying as Emma for the day, she decides to invite them all to her party, even though it's not her party, whatever. I think y'all know what I mean. So at said party, Emma is talking to Jake and decides that it's not in her place to keep him and Savannah apart. So she decides to find her so the two can truly begin their relationship without any distractions or roadblocks. Meanwhile, the complete opposite happens with Savannah. She actually breaks up with Emma's boyfriend Lance because of how stuck up and self-centered he is. And when the two girls finally meet back up to come clean about their switcheroo, Savannah tells Emma about the breakup. But she's actually ecstatic to find this out because she couldn't stand him. Lance gets heated at Jake for ruining his relationship, even though it's not really his fault, and actually ends up knocking down a chocolate fountain. This little sequence leads to one of the worst scenes that I have ever seen in any movie, ever. Emma's parents believe that there was nothing they could possibly do to salvage this party. But then...
People, the party's not ruined. It's just getting started.
Who invited these people? Who? Who knows them? How did they get in? This is a party for a girl that is from a different country, a different school, and a different tax bracket. No way they got an invite.
Time to party!
No! This is even worse. Why are you here? Who are these random people? This dude came in like, yeah, time to party. No, ain't no yeah. You ain't even a main character. Go back to Like Mike. None of this is even... Oh, okay, wait. Were they just standing outside of this house this whole time? How did they just immediately know that this dude Lance ruined the party? How did they just spawn out of nowhere and walk in? Where were they before Lance ruined everything? This doesn't make any sense. What is happening? No, where is this music coming from? Why does everybody know how to dance now? This movie is so bad. Wait, how did Julianne get here? She wasn't here before. She doesn't even know Emma. And why is she dancing with Walker? That is so incredibly out of character. Where did those skateboards come from? So every character in the movie just so happens to be at this party. Emma says she didn't even invite Rocky and Cece, so there's no way she invited Walker, Like Mike, or any of the other people that go to Savannah school, because she does not go to that school. Man, cut to commercial. Frenemies is the worst Disney Channel original movie of all time. Now look, I haven't seen every Disney Channel original movie, alright? But I find it really hard to believe that there is one out there that's worse than this. To start off, this movie is called Frenemies, but only one of the stories in it uses the term correctly. Frenemy is an oxymoron of friend and enemy that refers to a person with whom one is friendly despite a fundamental dislike or rivalry, or a person who combines the characteristics of a friend and an enemy. Kojo from Zeke and Luther is the first idea of a frenemy that comes to mind. Throughout the entire show, he was always going back and forth with the two main leads in the spirit of competition, and occasionally he can be seen as an antagonist. But when all is said and done, these three do like each other to some extent.
They've helped each other out multiple times, with Zeke even sticking up for Kojo at one point. There's definitely a level of respect between the three. I mean, even the finale of the show, and you know what, no, I'm gonna save it for the Zeke and Luther review. This movie, however, uses a boy and a dog who briefly had beef for like not even a day, and two girls who just met and look exactly like each other for some reason, that had like only 2 arguments with each other. Neither of those are frenemies. The only one that kinda counts is the Shake It Up one, because at least there was a level of competition between them. But even then, those girls are best friends that just happen to have an argument. It happens all the time. So none of these scenarios were really accurate. And even with that out of the way, what was supposed to be the lesson of the movie? Every DCOM has one. If it was to teach kids that you might go through rough patches with your friends, but you should always forgive them and stuff, then maybe don't include 2 scenarios that are literally impossible. The first act of the movie had a dumb idea and it was executed poorly. The second act had a decent idea that was also executed poorly. And the third act, well, that's when everything just reached new levels of bad. Like, I'm talking Madam Web levels of bad, and probably even a little worse. And between the whole lookalike aspect and the fact that people literally spawned out of nowhere at the end, the writers of this movie were betting on you just suspending all of your disbelief, which might work for like a 5-year-old, but even a 10-year-old would probably have issues with some of this. This is a new level of bad, even if it's a kid's movie. Kids are smarter than this and deserve better. I'm willing to give this movie a 1 out of 10, with that 1 star belonging to the fact that there's a dog in this movie. And I like dogs. I know some of you guys might be like, yeah, but this movie was so iconic for me growing up. Yeah, no, sorry, nostalgia isn't saving this one. It's just too horrible for that. However, I would like to hear what you guys think about this movie in the comments below. If you're new to this channel, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. As always, I'm Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.